Thoughts about the only meta carry that can work in one cost without 4-star cons being Mualani, making her the best beginner pull? I don't think that's true, but I think there is merit to the idea. I just don't think that the best beginner pull is inherently one that is functional at one cost. Because a beginner player just has access to primos, to enough primos to reach pity more than once. I do like Mualani as the second team to get, though. Like, you get whatever package of, like, Flynn, Zinepha, Columbina if you're an idiot like me, or, like, Zabai, Linnea, Columbina if you're smart, as one of your teams, and you just get Mualani as another one of your teams, and you're kind of set, and you don't really feel pressure to pull until you have enough primos for another full package. But also, like, there are a lot of abysses that are hard to do with Mualani. Yeah, like, if anything, Mualani is less appealing to new players and more appealing to returning players that just don't have a lot of primos and that feel like they can't clear shit because the power creep is fucking awful. Isn't Zabai 1 cost just better, though? No, not at all. Like, if we're talking about the new player experience, which is what's relevant here, right? You can use your first selector on Mona, no problem, right? So, you can use the Witch selector on Sucrose. So you can do Mualani, Mona, Sucrose, Pyro MC. And you're not reliant on any 4-star cons. You're not reliant on, like, RNG basically whatsoever. With Zabai, like, full C6 supports of, like, C6 Ino, C6 Idlua, C6 Goro, Zabai is, like, not... is, like, pretty similar to Mualani with C0 Mona. And if you ever get cons on Mona, which, like, you can get one for free just by the Constellation Selector, and if you're a new player, you don't have these old shit characters like Hu Tao, where you would want to get that C1 to make them feel less old, then, like, there's no better target than Mona, right? Like, no reason not to take the Mona C1. So you're basically starting from Mona C1. And that's kind of just better than the Zabai 1 cost teams. It's relatively similar. And then, it is way fucking harder to play, though. So, like, sure, it can be good for a new player, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every new player should think about it. Because you now have the downside of having to pay Mualani. Recommending Mualani to a new player is a good way to make them quit gacha games so you can count it as community service. Honestly, fair enough. You know, when you think about it that way, maybe Mualani is a good character to pull for as a new player. Huh. That's pretty goated. You're right. Can you look at Lohen 3 cost teams? I mean, they're just... See, you're asking... I really want to find a way or something without getting both Nicole and Durin, but Lohen's best 3 cost teams by far are going to be Nicole, Durin, and then the 4-star being the last character, right? Current best 3 costs I found is Escoffier, Nicole, Eon San. What? I guess I can see it. Maybe it does do a good amount of damage with the gold buff, but, like... Oh, I guess. It's probably fine, sure. I could also see, like, Mona as your second Hexerai instead of Nicole. Like, Mona, Eon-san, Bennett with, like, C2 Lohen. I could see that. Maybe not C2, maybe C1 or 1 Lohen. Like, I could see that being better. Eon-san isn't as good if you're not proccing Scroll, though, and you don't proc Scroll in that team. Maybe instead of Bennett, you bring a second Cryo. Like, but I guess you don't really have a good one. That's why if it was there, all the other Cryo characters are just dog shit. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough, honestly. I wonder how he scales with attack speed. I wonder if Mika's ever a consideration. Probably not. Like, I honestly could see Rosaria. Charge Attack won't get sped up. Yeah, but the wind up to it, because you have to do N1 will, but it's probably not that big of a deal. Or just Prune. That doesn't really help, though, right? I mean, second rotation, you can get the scroll proc even without a second cryo, right? And maybe first rotation, when you're not in Sigyn, you open with a burst, and if you're in Sigyn, you just accept that your first rotation is a bit weaker, because it generally is anyways. So maybe you don't need double cryo. Like your team building is just kind of cooked, right? Because like if you want to do lower cost Lohen stuff, right? Like you have Lohen. You really, 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 really want to have a second Hexarai. Because the Hexarai passive is useful on Lohen. It's not like insanely necessary, but it is useful. And also the new set is really good. So you get a lot of damage percent from having a second Hexarai. And the other Hexarais just aren't really good with him other than the 5 stars. Right? The only ones that could be good with him are the Animo ones, and they would want VV, so you don't really get the value from that. But, like, when you look at the Hexarai 4 stars, it's like, obviously not. Fischl. But, like, Fischl doesn't really do anything, right? So that's not very good. And your only other option that isn't a limited 5 star would be Mona, right? But let's say you do Mona. Like, what's the rest? Like, Eonson is really fucking good if you can proc things. But then, how do you proc things? How do you get the cryo? By swapping to Eonson first after Lohen uptime, but that means bad Eonson uptime on Lohen because you gotta get through Mona stuff. Maybe that's fine as long as you just do somewhat shorter rotations. But what's your last slot? Another character that either doesn't interfere with aura or has a really long buff or has short animations so they don't eat into Eonson uptime too much. Like, what would you do? And then you have a team that doesn't have shred. They don't really have functional shredder options. Does will to win just not matter here? Not really. I guess you do need to have one character that generates a bit to get value from the passive. But you don't really need to get value from the passive, honestly. You can just not E, spam N1C, and it's not that much worse. Maybe Shilonen on Scroll and Noblesse on San. Could do that, I guess, yeah. I don't know, man. Okay, let's fucking click on from an A so we don't get bothered and think. I do feel like if you're gonna be using Shilonen, it's probably better to just use Escoffier. It's 10% shred instead of 36. But she has a bit of personal damage. She gets Lohen his will to win. It's cryo resonance. And she allows you to get better setups with Eonson and better uptime on your stuff. If you look at shred options that aren't +1 cost, it's like VV, but you just can't get VV in these teams because no on-field cryo. And that's it, basically. Right? No other shred. At that point, wouldn't you want to play like Rosario over Eonson? Fuck no. Eonson is the only attack in this team. Nah, I think you're just kind of cooked, man. His teams suck, yeah. But like, he would like these teams would be a lot better if there was like a functional cryo unit you could use here. Right? What's wrong with this guy? Yeah. I mean, right now what we're looking at is like trying to min-max 3-cost Lohen teams. And using a unit like Escoffier feels really bad because she's just not very good in these teams. Like, she's fine, but she's not very good. And, like, is using Escoffier over a unit like Rosario actually meaningfully better than just getting a con on Lohen? It's probably, like, pretty similar, so it's like, ugh. But, like, if we had an actual Cryo 5-star that was meant for a team like this, then, like, yeah, that could be pretty good. Or if we had some functional Cryo 4-stars that could work here, that could also be pretty good. But I feel like we don't really have either of those. Dude, why is Rosario uptime so bad? Why not Seedlali? I mean, what is Seedlali doing? She doesn't shred Cryo. She only shreds Hydro and Pyro. So she's only there for Scroll, but you already have Scroll, so who cares? Durin is such an embarrassment. When you're not playing Nicole, if you try to play Melt Durin, it's like so bad. Like, he loses half of his stats. Or no attack buff, no damage set. Like, it's embarrassingly bad. I could see using Prune over Eonson, maybe. If you're also using a Cryo last slot. Because, like, you get a bit less attack. but you get the shred, and then you can get away with not having a shredder last slot. And then Bennett last slot, that doesn't work. If you do Bennett last slot, you can't use Mona. We need to be shredding Cryo. But maybe you don't use Mona. Like, yeah, but also, like, you're not getting Prune cons if you're not pulling on the 5 stars that you would put in these teams if they were higher cost, right? So, like, I feel like Prune doesn't really matter for this conversation. Maybe there's a world where you don't try to run Shred and instead you bring, like, Pyro App to make Lohen melt. No one does that other than Xiangling, right? But, like, maybe you could do something like this. Yeah, because, like, this does allow you to go C101 Lohen. How important is his Hex passive? His Hex passive isn't that important, but his Hex passive plus the gift set together are pretty damn good. And he's 1 character away from having that, not 2 characters away from having that, so if you can do it, you really want to. He was overtaking Burning Aura plus Durinap as solo cryo. Yeah, but that's 2U Pyro every 2 seconds is not the same as 1U Pyro, like, 1 point something times per second. But also, sure, eventually he overtakes the aura and then Xiangling melts, and it's not that bad, right? Because all of the buffs Lohen is getting, Xiangling is getting too in this team, other than the scroll. Scroll is the only thing Xiangling doesn't get. But she gets Mona damage percent, she gets reaction damage. She actually gets more reaction damage because she's off field. So, like, multiplying half of Lohen's motion value by 1.5 is probably pretty similar to multiplying all of Xiangling's motion value by 2. Right? So I don't think it's a big deal once you to lose the aura. She doesn't get Mona's gift set. That's true. I forgot about that. I guess that's a lot of damage percent we're missing then, huh? Minus 80 damage percent for fun. Ugh. But if you have her own emblem, she already has a lot, so I guess it's not that bad. But, like, we are getting the attack buff from Yeonsan, the reaction damage from Mona, the damage percent from Mona. This team is ER Issue's final boss. I mean, you play double Fav, and it's not too bad. Do you ever play triple Fav? What if you do Fav Mona? What if you do quadruple Fav? What if you do Fav Lohen? Thoughts? Okay, probably not. Oh, yeah, actually, can't you snapshot the gift set? I feel like you should be able to. Because it should just be pyro damage bonus on the stat page. Because elemental damage bonuses actually does show on the stat page, unlike burst damage and skill damage and whatnot. Right, like, it does show up here. So it's probably snapshotable. Question is, if you're doing TTDS Mona, who's getting it? Because, like, you would like to give it to Lohen, but I don't know if Xiangling Pyro App lasts long enough to do that. I don't think it does. So I think you have to give it to Xiangling, and at that point, it might be better to just have her on 5. I could see this team being, like, half functional, honestly. Isn't Yeonsan uptime a bit of a problem? Yes, it is. We also gotta figure that shit out. That's true. Can we beat 90k? C0, probably not, but if we're still maintaining the 3 cost idea, and we give him cons, then probably, yeah. Why not Bennett over Yeonsan? Yeonsan should just be better. Like, in pretty much every aspect. More energy to the whole team. Basically the same amount of attack because of the C2. Damage percent. Or why would you run Bennett? Yeah, power resonance, I guess, but like, meh. I don't know, man. You're just fucking cooked.